What a pass. Giddy underneath for JRE. The reverse and the rookie-to-rookie action. Outside through Dort. He'll get the flyby. 3 on the way, and he rattles it in. SGA defended closely by Westbrook. Tough. Step back. Gets up the shot. Banks it in for the lead.
This is Dort. You're listening to the Uncontested.
What is up, and welcome to the Uncontested podcast. We are coming to you live Sunday, February 6th, 9 p.m. Central Time, as we are closing in on the NBA trade deadline. It's the last time you're going to see all of us together before the deadline passes. We've already got some movement across the NBA, super exciting. So we're going to break down the week in Thunder basketball. We're going to talk about some of the trades that have already happened, what we anticipate the Thunder to do some mock trades. We're going to have a fun podcast for you guys tonight. So if you are joining us live, hey, shout out to you guys. Thank you so much. Make sure you get your questions in on the comments on Twitter, on Facebook, on YouTube. That way we can answer them tonight. If you're listening to the podcast version, if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to our show. Also, speaking of, Thursday is the NBA trade deadline.
Ooh,
it ends at
so
2
close.
p.m. Central Time. We will be live here on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. Central Time, breaking down all of the trades, all of the Woj bombs, and bringing you guys all the way up to the finish line, and then recording a podcast immediately after. So make sure to make plans. Join us. If you're off, if you're at the office, just turn on YouTube in the background and listen to us. We're also going to give away a Poku pack, one of our last Poku fanny packs plus swag bags during the trade deadline. If our YouTube channel gets to 400 subs, we are at 386 right now. So just 14 more. Go make sure you sub and then tune in on Thursday, and we will most definitely be giving away a Poku pack at the trade deadline. Hopefully Poku doesn't get traded at the deadline, because that would be really awkward to give away that pack. With all of that being said, I'm your host for the evening, Jacob Niffen. I've got JD Silva with me tonight.
What's up, fellas?
We've got Taylor Peterson.
I'm just not even sure why we are even talking about the trade deadline this week, because what really matters is a product on the court, and we just obviously don't enjoy the game of basketball.
Shout out, I'm not even going to say his name. We've also got Nick Crane with us tonight.
What it do, baby?
Gentlemen, it's already getting kind of wild across the NBA. Already two, not seismic trades, but they're like medium level earthquakes, right? It's not going to collapse San Francisco, but it's not like nobody felt them either, right? So we're going to dive into those. I'm hoping that's a precursor for what we have coming up the rest of the week. We will see. But first, we are a Thunder podcast, so we probably need to talk about this previous week in Thunder basketball, which, depending on your perspective, was a really good week or a really bad week. Thunder go 3-1. Wins against the Blazers, the Mavericks, and then the Blazers again. They capped it off with a loss last night, Saturday night, to the Sacramento Kings, when the Thunder were down 4 of their top 6 scorers. Lou Dort is out now officially with what do they call it? A nasal fracture.
Sounds painful.
Broke his nose. Half the rest of the team is missing their right foot. Apparently it's all right foot injuries, which is pretty unfortunate. But Nick, how was Oklahoma City 3-1 without Shea? Like, whenever Shea went down, I think we all talked and we said like 1-9, 2-8 in those 10 games.
Mm-hmm.
They're already 3-1.
I think it's more of a product of the other teams, to be honest. 2 of those 3 were against Portland, who, quite frankly, just a bad brand of basketball right now. And those were both, one was pre-horrific trade, one was post-horrific trade. But either way, they're very undermanned. They're not a good basketball team. I don't think the goal is to be a good basketball team right now. And then the Mavs game, that's on the Mavs. If the Mavs play halfway decent, if they have Porzingis, if they have Tim Hardaway, they win that game. Not to discount the individual performances of some of the guys we've seen step up, which I'm sure we'll get into, but I truly pin the 3 wins on the other team just not stepping up to the plate.
Yeah, opponents in the last 4 games are shooting 26% from 3 also. Which is a huge part.
Yeah, that'll do it. Is some of it teams like Dallas saw Oklahoma City on the schedule at home, no Shea, and just kind of, I mean,
Chalked it up to an off night.
we used to talk about this all the time when the Thunder had Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook, right?
And Russell Westbrook and PG and Melo.
Yeah, that they wouldn't step up to the plate and would play down to their competition. Is that happening now, but we're just on the flip side of the coin?
I think a lot of that for sure. Nick and I talked about too last night's post game. Like teams still aren't necessarily scouting for a SGA list Thunder team, and so you don't, they aren't really throwing double teams at Josh Giddey or guarding Trey Mann a specific way. We might start to see that here in the coming week. Now that it appears that SJ is going to be out long term, but also, like, is it worth these teams putting that time and effort into scouting a team like OKC, or just letting your guys go out there and play and assume that you have more talent and depth than this team currently does with these key players out for the Thunder? I think Nick brings up a good point, but from the Thunder side of things, Nick and I guess we talked some about this as well last night. I think the two big reasons are two players who happen to be rookies who have been in the starting lineup. Josh Giddey and Trey Mann have stepped up tremendously. I said last night that each of them have kind of had their own like big nights. For example, Josh Giddey's game last night was his big night where he had a career high 24 points, almost had a double-double if any of his teammates could knock down open shots. Where Trey Mann's big game,
shut up, Derek Favors airballing a layup.
Yeah, right, no kidding. I thought that's what JRE was supposed to do. But and then Trey Mann, obviously, his big game was his career high was against the Mavericks. But even then, you look at the other games that they played, and they're still have been very consistent, putting up big time stats. And I think those two are a big reason for the way that the Thunder have continued to play without guys like Shea and Lou.
Yep. Nick, I also think, and you probably are a little more in tune with this than I am. I think we're really starting to see the physical representation of the culture that this team is building. We hear a lot about the 0-0 mentality from this team, from Coach Daignault. We don't talk about Coach Daignault a lot. I've been thinking about him a lot this past week.
Oh, have you?
Is he the second youngest coach in the league? Is that right?
He's the youngest.
He's the youngest. I didn't know if what is his name? Chris Finch up there in Minnesota.
I think he's a year older.
Okay.
I believe.
So youngest guy in the league. Definitely a hand-picked and hand-molded guy. He's been impressive with the hand that he's been dealt. Coming in, knowing the situation, attacking the situation as what it is, player development, player buy-in. I don't know what to say about it besides that it's just been a very impressive coaching job of young men. When he's been put in a difficult situation, I think NBA coaching is a lot less about X's and O's and a lot more of
Jimmy's and Joe's.
Yes. A lot more of managing players and building relationships and empowering people and getting them to buy in. Yeah. Sounds a lot like a high school history teacher, honestly. And he's done, I think, a phenomenal job. Now, as far as is he a championship level coach? Like, we won't know until we see this guy coach in the playoffs for multiple years. But I think coaching has to have something to do with the way this team performs.
Yeah, and I think particularly on defense, which Oklahoma City, I believe, is 9th now in the NBA.
Top 10.
Defensively, top 10. So I think, like you said, coaching in the NBA is not a whole lot of X's and O's. Like in football, you've got an offensive coordinator and their play calls legitimately have a huge impact on the outcome of the game. And in basketball, you don't see that as much, but what you do see is situational X's and O's, and we've seen Daignault draw up some pretty spectacular late game inbounds plays.
We've also seen Josh Giddey say, I completely disregarded it.
Sure. But the sample size tells us when Oklahoma City. So they'll tell me this, knowing that all of us probably have losing in the best interest for this team.
Mm-hmm.
when Oklahoma City has the ball down 1 point with 5 seconds left inbounding, you're pretty damn nervous, which isn't
100%.
which isn't normal for a team that's in the bottom 5 of the NBA.
Yeah.
With a rookie inbounding the ball.
Right. It's and a lot of it is Giddey. Like, you can be ultra creative when you have Giddey inbounding the ball, but between defense and situational X's and O's, he has been very, very impressive. And then, like, the third piece of it is, like you said, buy-in, especially when you're that young. There's a lot of guys in the league. I don't know about a lot of guys. There's several guys in the league that are older than Mark is right now. So the fact that he's able to do that, I know the fact that he's able to do that at his age, and he has the guys, and you hear the things he says post game, guys will come in right after him and echo the same thing. So, like, what he's saying in the locker room is being received
resonating.
Well. Yeah. So it's good to see. I think you make a pretty good point there, Jacob.
Yeah,
like
he's been very impressive. I don't know.
And even guys like,
I really
we've
enjoy
seen
him.
Dignon out and COVID protocols, and guys like Wilkes stepping up, having similar success and still being able to, maintain those values and things that they put in place. Like, I think it just goes to the overall picture that you allude to, Jacob, being the culture that the Thunder have set in place. And that's a large reason why they're continuing to have success and overachieve in certain stretches like this past week.
I mean, I think of this team is bottom 5 in the league. And then they took their starting power forward, who is represented by Clutch, and moved him to the bench. And the kid bought into it. Like, that typically doesn't happen. I think that just shows the relationship, and it's very linear. It's from the players to the coaching staff to the front office. I think that's the big difference. Too. Yeah, I think that's the big difference. This is why there is such. The Kings have more talent than Oklahoma City, and the Kings did win last night. But you look at the Kings and you look at the Thunder, and those are two franchises that are in completely different stratospheres. And I think that's a big reason why. I really do. The injuries, let's get back to the actual on-court stuff. The injuries are piling up. Shea is out until at least the All-Star break. Lou's face is broken. JRE's foot is broken. We got a Wiggins ankle. Favors just got back. Looks like Mike Muscala is not playing Monday night now. Taylor, are we going to start seeing this team play the bench guys and the young guys a lot more down the stretch after the All-Star break? Kind of like, with what we saw last season. Is it going to be at the same level of last season? Is it going to be completely opposite and they're going to play all their guys? Does it fall somewhere in the middle? What do you foresee happening with the players on the court moving forward?
I think we're 100% going to see more of these young guys getting more opportunity. We're going to see guys like Shays and the Dorts sitting out a little more often. We're not going to see nearly as much Muscala nor Kenrich Williams, if he is still on this team post-trade deadline this upcoming Thursday, as we've alluded to. But it's not going to be as severe in the sense, or maybe as blatant as it was last season, because you had a player like Al Horford who you pretty much just came to a mutual agreement with that you were going to sit in the rest of the season. Then right on top of that, even if it was a legit injury, it happened so close together with that announcement of Horford that, you have Shea sitting out the rest of the season due to injury. I think we're going to get to the point, even though the Thunder have played as well they did this past week, I still stand by what I said here about a week ago, that I think the Thunder are going to lose enough games without Shea that he will come back and get to play and finish out the season. And it won't matter all that much like it would have last season, just because I think they're going to lose a handful of games by the time he gets back at full strength. But with all that being said, I mean, for example, I'm not going to pretend like I have inside info about Lou Dort's face, but like, I don't think it's probably as serious as the Thunder are making it out to be. I know Mike Muscala might need surgery in the offseason on that ankle, but I'm pretty sure he could have played last night if they wanted him to. We're going to see things like that, I think, throughout the rest of the season. And then we'll see guys like Teo and Poku, a good example from last night, getting more burn here down the stretch.
I was happy to see Poku again. I feel like it's been a while. I went to the Blue.
January 9th was the last time Silva.
Went to the Blue, then just kind of faded away, was forgotten. And I was kind of starting to get to worry about what the franchise, if their mentality on Poku had changed at all. But with injuries to guys like JRE and Mike and Aaron Wiggins, it was nice to see him go out there and like look confident and make like winning plays. He had 12, 9, and 3 last night, I believe. I hope we get to see more of him. Like, we saw a lot of him at the end of last season with Shea being out. Kind of had the Poku show. He played point guard one game. I doubt that'll happen again with Josh Giddey being on the team now. But yeah, I'm excited to see more of that guy. He's still super young and has a lot of room to grow.
And I know Teo struggled, to say the least, this season. And I'm not just saying this because he had his, honestly, first good game of the season last night against the Sacramento Kings as we record this on a Sunday. But I think we'll see some guys like Teo get more burn as well. If Isaiah Roby is able to come back a little more healthy, he probably gets back in the rotation. Not ridiculous minutes, but you just start to see more and more of those small things that kind of add up and, for lack of a better term, help you lose games, right?
Nick, one interesting thing about this conversation for me is we just talked about coach. So I'm going to kind of circle the wagons back to that. Two things. Number one, he's talked a lot about with Trey Mann, the whole like the broccoli thing, right? We make a big deal out of the broccoli thing. Basically, Trey Mann working his butt off, playing hard defense, and then the floaters and the step back threes and the fancy offensive stuff comes second. But you have to be a solid contributor as far as moving the ball, setting screens, playing defense, working hard, hitting the glass, all of that. And then last night, post game, talking about Poku, I thought this phrase was very interesting. He said that he was happy because Poku came out and competed really hard. And to me, that insinuates that sometimes Poku doesn't compete hard. And like that's unacceptable. So when we're talking about playing more of these young guys down the stretch for like tank purposes and roster exploration, how do you balance that by like, okay, well, we want to get Poku more burn and get him more experience, but do we reward whenever we don't think he's competing, or we want to play Trey more because it's going to help us lose, but it's also better for us in the long term because Trey's getting experience. But if Trey's not eating that broccoli, are we still going to let him play? And, there's an interesting give and take that I think they ran into some problems with at the end of last season, playing Bays, playing Teo, playing Poku.
That's a really good point.
And they've kind of backtracked on the Poku stuff this year where they said, we kind of let him go last year. Now we're trying to rein him in and keep him inside of his system. Where do you see that balance playing out for the rest of the season if they try to, quote unquote, explore the roster and get young guys burned to help lose games?
Yeah, well, I think the competitive comment doesn't necessarily mean wasn't showing effort or wasn't trying hard. I think it's more of just Poku a lot of times finds himself in a spot where he's not supposed to be. Like he's not in the flow of offense, he's not in the flow of defense, and he could just be competitive if he was just in the right spot. It doesn't even matter if he's making his shots or, it just do the right rotation on defense, be in the right spot on offense, and that's competitive, right? Like you're doing the right things. And I think year two, there's a different expectation level for him, as there should be, although he is still young. They want to see growth, and so there should be a higher expectation. I do think he's going to play quite a bit down the stretch, but I do think the leash is shorter to where if he continues to look lost, like he'll be with the blue or he'll be getting his reps in practice until he can show that he can be a basketball player. Like that's step one is, can you go out there and play 25 minutes and look like you belong?
Yeah, I think that's interesting that the Trey Mann aspect of it, I think that applies to everyone, all of the young guys. But I think it's an interesting balance of the team and the coaching staff have these ethos, these things they believe. You earn playing time. You have to play tough defense. You have to like pass the smell test for us.
Yeah.
But playing you and you kind of sucking is probably best long-term for the franchise's goals. And so how do we balance those two things? Just a fascinating, like internal game of chess, I guess.
I like that you brought that up, Jacob. And I know we probably need to move on, but I kind of want your thoughts on this as well. I think one reason or one luxury that they've had, again, before the trade deadline upcoming this week, is if you have a Trey Mann who isn't competing like you hope on defense, or you have a Poku who isn't doing what you want, isn't being as disciplined, or Baisley, another good example. You have guys like Mike Muscala and Kendrick Williams that you can plug in and play more in those situations. That's a really nice luxury they have right now. And they very likely will still have that same luxury after the deadline. But in the if Kendrick is traded, if a team does just kind of blow OKC away with an offer, which we'll get into, and Presti decides to pull the trigger, then you have less options. You're throwing in a Teo Maladone instead of a Trey Man, or you're throwing in a Isaiah Roby instead of a Baisley. And I don't know. I'm just you're right. It's going to be very interesting to see how they are able to kind of manage that push and that pull between discipline and letting these guys get a little more burn towards the end of the season. I think you bring up a good point.
It's fascinating. Hey, Silva, will you bring up that question in the chat before we move on from the Poku talk? I love this one. Big Mike New Zealand says, what Pokemon would Poku be at the moment, and what Pokemon should he aspire to be?
I've got a good one here.
Go for it.
He's currently a Magikarp that can only splash, but he has so much potential that he could eventually evolve into a Gyarados that can do Hyper Beam and Surf and all these cool things, but it's going to take a little time.
That was mine as well.
Sorry.
I'm not going to show my unathletic body on the podcast, but I am going to verbally flex a little bit that I'm currently getting my ribs tattooed, and there's a big old Gyarados on there, and it's pretty badass.
Oh, I forgot about that. That is cool.
Gyarados is the dude. Silva, you got a Pokemon for Poku?
I do, and have it right here. He's he's a Sudowoodo.
Yeah.
Just the tree. Just long, doesn't move at all. But he should be a Mewtwo.
Oh,
thicken up in his lower half.
Mewtwo, thick AF, actually.
Become a
Hey,
badass.
Isn't Mewtwo?
Isn't Mewtwo like 7 feet tall?
Yep,
Oh, there you go. See, good.
that's Poku's ceiling.
Good
Wasn't
stuff.
Mewtwo also like a philosopher in the first Pokemon movie?
Yeah.
I don't remember, to be honest. I've got him as a you have to keep me honest here. It goes Caterpie, Metapod, Butterfree. Is that right?
Yeah.
He's kind of that.
Drill.
So what?
Oh no! Sorry. You had it right.
Yeah,
I was thinking
okay.
Weedle.
He's the middle one where he's like in his cocoon,
Yeah.
and he's like about to become this really cool, like, I can put you to sleep, I can poison you, I can do all these things, but right now I'm just kind of this little shell guy that just doesn't do really much. That's what he is.
I like that.
He's got
I like that a
potential.
lot.
Do you remember the episode Bye Bye Butterfree?
Cry every
iconic
time.
episode.
First time I cried at a television show. Ash had to release the Butterfree because it was
Keep down the
sprung on another
girlfriend.
Butterfree and was
Really?
ready to get to work.
Yep.
And Ash cried as they did a montage of Caterpie
All the
evolving all
throwbacks.
the way up. And
Caterpie
It
was
was
his
a sad
first
episode.
Pokemon. Man.
Indigo
Yeah.
League is on Netflix right now.
Yeah.
If you're a 90s kid and you want to
So
go
good.
back and relive your childhood, where 10-year-olds just bail on their family and wander the countryside.
I am loving Mike's follow-up here. Big Mike's follow-up here. How to derail a whole podcast in one foul swoop.
Very true. You don't get
That
us on
was great.
Pokemon. We'll go off the train. Silva, from this, I'm calling it a quote unquote run because they're 3-1, which is absurd because before this stretch, I don't think they had won 3 games in the span of a month, and now they
Ooh.
just did it in the span of a week.
Nick, what was the stat that you threw out there last night at the very beginning of our post game? I
Oh,
can't remember. Of the Kings versus the Thunder. To Jacob's earlier point.
Kings have won 3 of their last, I think, 12, and Oklahoma City has won 3 of their last 4.
Yeah.
It was like just sad.
It's bad for the tank, man. Silva, over this quote unquote run, what has been the most impressive thing? What's been the thing that's jumped off the page to you?
So if we were to say impressive, I think we've seen. So Dort's been great over the last little run that we're on. Dort's been awesome. We've seen it be awesome before, though. What jumps off the page is Trey Mann's performance against the Mavericks. I've been wanting to see that from him all season, and he let it fly in the Portland game right after. It didn't work out, but when it does work out, it is incredible to watch. So that performance from Trey Mann against Dallas, that pops off the page for me.
Yeah, I think even after that performance, he hasn't scored the points like you mentioned, but the shot attempts are still there. And that tells me he heard that message from Daignault. Was it after the first Portland game where
Yep.
coach said he wanted to see Trey take more shots, be more aggressive? That message has come through and Trey looks more confident. And I love to see that. I think that's big for this team moving forward. Taylor, Nick, you guys have any others besides Trey? I think Trey's the big takeaway.
I agree. Trey's definitely the big takeaway.
I think my other takeaway is that Derek Favors doesn't belong on an NBA floor at this point in his career. Like he looked like last night specifically, I was watching and I was like, wow, like he's beyond his years, man. Like he's slow. A lot of guys, I'm not gonna get in the rabbit hole, but I'll give an example of like Paul Millsap or Blake Griffin, J. Michael Green. These guys like play that forward position and they stay in the league a long time because they can either like shoot or defend or they're. He's slow. He can't shoot. He's small. I don't know what to do with him, man. He's
like
he's
a finisher around the rim.
Yeah,
Only
he's
thing
too
he can
small
do
to
is
play
hit
center,
mid-range.
really. Now,
Right.
I did think in that first Portland game, after about the first 5 minutes, he really settled in and played Nurkic well. I think that's maybe where his value is being able to be strong enough to bang with bigger dudes, but that's just not the current NBA.
Maybe Nurkic isn't that good.
Yeah, Nurkic also like hates
Checked out.
I think
everything right
Nurkic
now.
just
Checked
doesn't
out.
give a shit right now.
Yeah.
That
I-
second Portland game, I don't think the dude jumped. You know, he was getting some light cardio in an NBA game. That was about it. Nick, coming back to you then, what from this quote unquote run feels too good to be true?
Oh, that's a good one. Perhaps I would say the shooting efficiency of Josh Giddey. I think when you're shooting that many shots, you have an opportunity to get into rhythm. I think last night he shot 19 times. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
You have the opportunity to kind of get into that rhythm. You start making shots. You end up making just over half. I think he was 10 of 19. In a real game that's fully healthy roster, he's probably shooting more like 10, 11 shots. It's a lot harder. If you miss your first 4 or 5, you're kind of already in that hole. You only got 5 or 6 shots left. So I would expect, or I guess I would say my non-sustainable statistic over these past few games has been Giddey's efficiency.
Well, Giddey is shooting 49% over this past game or this past week of 4 games, but only 19% from 3. Not great.
Yeah.
What's his 2-point percentage though? That's more I'm thinking of like floater game and mid range around the rim. He's been feels like he never misses.
The long two looks good.
on stats.nba, they don't have just the 2-point percentage over the last 4, but he's taking 15 field goal attempts a game, 4 3-pointers a game. So if you take away the 4 threes, that's 10.8 twos a game, and he's hitting 6.5 of them, so 65% from 2.
That's more what I'm thinking. Like the floater, the mid range, and around the rim, he just hasn't missed in the last 3 games.
Yeah,
Even when increasing his shot attempts.
Yeah.
I forget. Maybe it was Silva who was on the pod with me. The floater and the mid-range pull-up give me a lot of confidence that he's going to be a shooter moving forward.
Think about the legs. This guy's playing 4 times the amount of games he's used to. The 3-point line has been moved back. It's not surprising he's struggling from 3 where other jumpers from kind of closer distances look fine.
Also, whenever he came back from COVID, the 3-point shot for about a week looked really good and then started to trail off again.
Yeah, that's true.
And get short.
That's a good point. And I've said that, just
Tired
watching
legs.
his shot, he has a really good shooting motion, but legs is a huge thing for him. He's got to get more legs in his shot, which will come from getting strength in his legs, as well as a little more, this is ridiculous, but hip flexibility. And then Mikey Bear has been all over this as well. He has a tendency to shoot with his palm rather than his fingertips, and you typically can tell when he's shooting with his fingertips when after that release, like it has much better arc and it looks like it has a better trajectory to actually make it. So there's just a couple of small tweaks that he can make. I think that'll really help him be a more efficient shooter, which is exciting, really exciting.
Silva, do you have something from this run that seems too good to be true?
Silva had a pretty fun one. We were talking pre-pod, and I hadn't really thought of this.
Yeah, I think I touched on it really briefly at the beginning of this pod. The opponent 3-point percentage is a huge indicator of kind of how things are going defensively at times. I think that I said they were shooting 24%, something like that, really low against the Thunder the last 4 games. I don't expect that to hold up. They're on average. Opponents are shooting an average rate against the Thunder all season long, right around 34%, I believe. So I kind of think things are going to swing back that way. And with more and more players being knocked out because of injuries, I think this team is going to start sliding again.
Yeah.
What do you guys think about the rise of Mamadi Diakite this week? Big week for Diakite. Maybe not a great week performance-wise, but a big week nonetheless.
He's another undersized I told Taylor this last night. He doesn't remind me of this guy by like play style or body type by any means, but Moses Brown, just like strong trash buckets, a lot of rebounds, just kind of who he is. I don't think he's ever going to be the starter or even a first string backup, but he does some things.
He reminds me of a really poor man, Serge Ibaka. With he doesn't
that
have
lob
the
he had
shooting.
was nice.
Yeah, the lob, and then some of the shot blocks he can get are pretty exciting. He'll get down there and scrap a little bit for rebounds. I think mine for this thing that's maybe too good to be true. There's two of them, so it's basically the flip version of what you had. Darius Baisley shooting 41% from three, and Lou Dort shooting 46% from three. Lou shooting 46% from three on 8.7 attempts a game. The dude's averaging 4 made threes a game. That's a hot spell and it's not sustainable. And as fun as it is, it's not staying around. Now, if Baisley could settle in at 33%, he becomes a pretty valuable player, right? Now, I don't want to get down this rabbit hole either, but I think Baisley has been playing really good lately and finally starting to play within himself and not force too much and not do too much. I worry with so many guys out that he's going to be put in a position where that leash gets a little bit longer. We'll see. We'll see. All right, gentlemen, we've talked enough about this past week of basketball. Let's do a tank update. Sylvia, you got the tank sounder queued up for us?
Yep.
You.
Loser! You're a loser! And that means that the number one pick in the NBA draft goes to...
All right. Oklahoma City currently sitting at the 4th best lottery odds. Feels like they've been stuck at 4 for like an eternity now. There's been no movement up or down. They're kind of stuck there in the middle. They are 2 games up, or 2 games, I guess, behind the Houston Rockets. Houston is at 15-37. Thunder at 17-35. OKC, now let me refresh this real quick because I think a game finished since the last time I did this. Oklahoma City now only a half game up on Indiana. Indiana is 19-36. The Thunder are 17-35. And they are only a game and a half up on 6th place Sacramento, 2 games up on 7th place San Antonio. So sitting at 4 is nice, but the possibility to slip definitely is prevalent there. So I want to ask you guys, how are you feeling about OKC staying at 4? Like, do you feel like, and we can get into what some of these other teams are doing right now, do you feel like this is where they will eventually land? Or what teams below them are you worried about? What teams are scaring you, especially with the trade deadline coming up?
The Pacers. It used to be the Pelicans here like 2 weeks ago, but they recently, this past week, had been on a similar run to the Thunder.
And they want to get better.
Exactly. There's been the rumors about them being linked to Eric Gordon, CJ McCollum, and which means I think they're maybe a little more optimistic about Zion coming back this season. So, like, with all that being said, I'm less worried about the Pelicans, but like after today's trade with Karis LeVert and then the talks, Woj is always very particular when it comes to his wording. And it's not a coincidence that he followed up that Karis LeVert trade with a tweet regarding Sabonis and Miles Turner still being in like the centerpiece of trade talks or something like that. That worries me if they're going full rebuild. It worries me from a Thunder standpoint.
I'd be pissed if I was Rick Carlisle.
No,
you leave Luka, the top generational talent to coach, to go to this
who
Indiana
apparently
team.
Don't like him. But
yeah, well, sure, but that's about to go tank out the season in his first year. Yikes!
And Rick Carlisle is notorious for not liking to play young guys.
No, he doesn't.
It's a good point.
He physically does not.
It's a
play
really good point.
Unless you are Luka Doncic, you are not playing as a rookie.
Which is kind of funny to start a rebuild with that guy.
Yeah. He may not be the guy if they're really going to hit the reset button. It may be a mutual thing. Like, we love you, Rick, but you don't want to be here, and you're not the right coach for a rebuild, and it may be a mutual thing pretty quick.
Yeah. So how do you guys feel about staying in 4? Like,
I think that's best case, honestly, at this
I have a
point.
question about staying at 4. I've been hearing the name AJ Griffin more and more this week. Can one of you give me like a elevator pitch on who this guy is?
He's a really good 3-and-D guy that will probably never be a franchise cornerstone. I'm unselling you. I'm not selling you on him at 4 because I don't think you should go at 4. He's shooting like 50% from 3. He's got the size you want from a wing. He's had some explosive games recently, but he's still averaging under 10 points a game. Like, I just don't see him being. He's not in that Chet Jabari category.
Is this like a Moses Moody type of thing?
Kind of a tier 2, exactly. I think that's actually
He's
really
definitely
good.
a tier
really
2.
good call, yeah.
Let's see. I took a screenshot.
part of the reason for the
found it.
averages being so low is I think he's been dealing with injuries since he was in high school.
Yep.
And so
It
he
was a
didn't
slow
play a
start
lot
to the
at the
season.
beginning. Yeah, he had a slow start, played off the bench a lot. Yeah, definitely not a superstar, but I think you put him next to Shea and Josh and let him catch and shoot threes. Also, I didn't know this until the other day. He is the son of former Thunder assistant coach Adrian Griffin.
I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
That's his son?
Yep, that's Adrian's son, which is pretty cool.
Adrian Jr. That makes a whole AJ Griffin. There we go. Makes sense.
He's a guy that
I want him.
he would have been like the ultimate Clippers pick falls and you get him at 10 guy. Like the ultimate. But
I think he's going to have a good combine though.
No,
I think he'll shoot up to the top.
He's going to be
5 through 7.
He's going to be a good player. I would say if this season is tanked out and you end up with AJ Griffin as your top pick,
Disappointing.
You're gonna have to start doing something different.
Yeah.
Going forward.
Yep.
That's
Great piece to fit alongside.
I still really like him.
I do too.
I don't like him as like your number one
Yes,
guy, but I really
like him a lot. I like him a lot.
Shooting, I found my screenshot. He's shooting 43 of 74, so 58.1% on 2-pointers, and 39 of 70, 55.7% from 3-pointers this season. But the biggest thing about him is he has that elite athleticism and bounce that often shooters don't really have. 3-and-D guys don't typically have.
He also spaces his legs like crazy whenever he shoots threes, and it's funny.
Wider than his shoulders. It is so weird, but
I love it.
He gets set so well. Sam Vecini was talking about this. Like, I guess scouts are really excited about his fundamentals with his shot because he's able to get his feet set, even if they are so strange and wide. Like his base, I don't know. It's really impressive.
All right. Way to derail the podcast, Silva, with an AJ Griffin question. Nick, you said you think 4th place is like best case scenario for OKC.
I do too.
I'm starting to feel like that as well, especially if Houston sells off the vets like we think they're going to. What would change your mind and make you think OKC could get to 3rd or even 2nd best odds? They have 5 more wins than Detroit. They have 2 more wins than Houston. I think 3rd is probably best case scenario for me. What would change your mind?
I don't think it's anything Oklahoma City could do to change my mind. Like, even if Shea was out the rest of the year, which I wouldn't count that out, to be quite honest. He's being reevaluated after the All-Star break, and that
he's
doesn't
not coming back yet. It's a reevaluation.
It would take one of these other like 3 teams below them or like the 2 teams right above them to make that like Sabonis trade or like one of those like young guys like a John Collins, like a young guy that might help them win a couple games. It would take that happening for one of those other teams below them or right above them to make me think they could end up going 3. I think 2's out of the question, to be honest.
Yeah, I think 2's out of the question as well. I think 3 is the highest you can get. I think right now my focus is less on climbing the odds and more on not slipping farther the opposite direction.
Agree completely.
Clippers pick currently scheduled to be at pick number 15. Technically, they have a worse record than the team that's picking 14th, which is Charlotte. But because the way the playoffs work, the Clippers are at 8th and Charlotte is at 9th because 2 different conferences. They are only 2.5 games away from being the 10th best odds, from dropping into the lottery and having the 10th best odds in the draft. Only 2.5 games away. But they're also only 2.5 games away from that pick being pick number 20. Wow, that shows you how tightly compacted 10 through 20 is. That middle third of the league, all really at the same spot. Where do we think this Clipper pick ends up at, especially considering the trade that happened late last week where the Clippers basically traded away a bunch of nothing to get Norman Powell, which is a hell of a trade.
And Robert Covington.
And Robert Covington.
Who might be flipped.
Hindsight is going to be awful for Portland. I mean, that was bad.
Well, I truly think today in the Slack we were saying like it couldn't get any worse for Portland, but then seeing reports tonight that teams are calling the Clippers to try to get them to flip Rocco. Clearly, there's a market for Rocco, and you just dumped him.
But
what
Keon Johnson, though,
what are you doing?
Insane. I'll tell you what,
Poor
that interim GM at Portland, that MFer ain't getting the job.
No. Good God.
Right.
So I asked you guys a few weeks ago, whenever the Clippers were at 12th or 13th, I said, if you could lock in these odds right now, would you do it? And I think most of us said yes. We didn't foresee a push the chips in the middle trade coming, though.
Makes me think Kawhi and PG are both coming back.
Well, I know Ty Lue said that Kawhi, they don't expect him back. PG is getting a MRI relatively soon. That'll reveal a lot, literally and figuratively. I mean, it's a fucking picture of your body, so it's going to reveal a lot anyways. But so really my question for you guys is, will the Clippers get top 6 and in the West and that pick be locked in to not be a lottery pick? Or can Thunder fans hold out hope that the Clippers will be in the play-in and something funny can happen?
There's no way they're getting 6.
I don't think. Yeah, the way the West is, I'm with you.
They're not better than the Nuggets. They're not better than the Mavs. They're not better than the Grizzlies. And then from up from there, it's not even a conversation if they're as good as those teams.
Grizzlies 3rd place in the West right now.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Although I don't think they're the 3rd best team.
Yeah, but they've been freaking incredible.
They have.
I think they give me strong 2011 Thunder vibes.
Phoenix.
Oh yeah, that's
Phoenix,
good.
Golden State, Utah, even without Ingles, Memphis, Denver, Dallas. Those 6 teams are head and shoulders above even this new chips in the middle Clippers team.
Yeah. I will say I do think it's bad news for the Thunder's. And again, we don't know injury history and what will happen. The league changes so drastically. The pendulum swings so quickly. That trade worries me more about those future Clippers picks than this year's.
I agree.
Clippers
Yes.
Because a starting lineup of Reggie Jackson, who I do not like, but has been a very good player recently.
Mm-hmm.
Reggie Jackson, Norman Powell, Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, Ivica Zubac. That's a pretty solid starting 5.
And there's talk that they kind of view Reggie as maybe more like an SGA in the sense of like him being more of a scoring guard and wanting more of a facilitator next to him. So I hadn't seen that yet, Nick, about them wanting to flip Covington again. Like
he's expiring. He's expiring.
Oh, okay, yeah. So if you're able to get another aspect, and then they're able to, or even just some free agency this year, you're able to.
Yeah.
Oh shit! Just turn around and trade him for a second pick, and you're ready to recoup your cost.
Yeah.
And then you get another primary facilitator next to Reggie, PG, Kawhi, and why am I going blank on who just got Powell?
If Dallas is getting calls with offers for late lottery picks for Dorian Finney-Smith, then Robert Covington can get some kind of return.
Mm-hmm. Crazy.
True.
Last of the Thunder's first round picks, that Suns pick, we got to give an update on it. Still pick number 30. I don't think it's going to change. Don't think it's going to change. I mean, I know the Thunder did Chris Paul right, and that was the whole point. What a trade for the Phoenix Suns.
Absolutely.
Like, franchise changing, yes, but even more than that, like culture changing, changing the entirety of the history of that program.
Yep.
Massive deal.
We've said this. I'm just going to reiterate it. This stash of picks Oklahoma City has is stretched out to like 2028. if they're good by 2025 or even 2026, they're going to have a bunch of picks to still mess around with and make that kind of trade for themselves.
Exactly.
Yep. That's a good point.
Exactly.
A lot of flexibility.
All right, gentlemen, I think it is time that we move on and talk about the trade deadline. That's what everyone's here for.
Yes.
We've gone 45 minutes. It's been really good stuff, but let's dive into the juiciness of it all. We've already mentioned it. Let's just touch on it again real quick. The Clippers traded Justice Winslow, Eric Bledsoe, Keon Johnson, and a Detroit second-round pick to Portland for Norman Powell and Robert Covington. My first note says, what the F? I'm not going to drop the actual F word so Silva doesn't have to bleep it out. And then my second note was, how does these moves affect Oklahoma City? I think we've kind of touched on that quite a bit from the Clippers side. So just a real quick from the other side. A, is Portland done or not? And B, we talked about being worried about Indiana. Do we need to be worried about Portland in the tank race? They are currently 21-33. They've lost 5 in a row. They are only 3 games behind the Thunder.
Yeah, I think we do need to be. Jacob, and I'm curious your thoughts on this as well, Jacob, because you mentioned kind of thinking that this trade, initially you were thinking signal that they'll probably hold on to CJ. We'll see how much he actually plays the rest of the season and kind of, him and Dame heading into next season still together. And I kind of thought the opposite, that this kind of signals that they're selling the farm, that Powell would go before breaking up CJ and Dame, and for just a ridiculous trade, not getting much in return for him, makes me think that they are more willing to trade CJ. They are going to get off Nurkic. They're going to do the quote unquote, I guess what GMs are calling, I can't remember who quoted this. It was like Zach Lowe or somebody calling it the Warriors year or the Warriors gap year, where basically your stars are out. So you tank as hard as you can just for
and
one
Bernie
season.
Simons is Jordan Poole.
Yeah, right. Yeah. There you go. Well, and apparently, they're super high on. So trading CJ obviously would give.
See, I think
Simons
that's
a bigger
opposite of
opportunity.
that thought process, though. Like, just tank with CJ, because if you trade CJ, your team, regardless of what your return is, I think your team is going to be worse. I mean, Silva and I were looking at CJ trades earlier.
It's not good.
Who's trading for a 31-year-old who's owed like $120 million over the next 3 or 4 years?
There's teams that will do it, but not for the price that you're wanting for
Yeah,
CJ.
you're not getting equal value.
Right. But my point is, like, you tank as hard as you can this season.
Yep.
Portland does surpass us potentially in the tank standings. You have this incredible asset, and if you do get lucky in the lottery, you're able to trade for somebody of a better value than CJ to pair alongside.
Or
Dame.
you just don't play CJ much the rest of this year, and you bring him back next year.
Or you trade Lou Dort for the 4th overall pick when they get that.
Yeah.
I love it.
But
Nick.
Lou and Dame, I don't know. I think it's more likely that Dame would request out this offseason than
Yeah, probably so. Nick, do you think Portland's done?
Yeah. Remind me of Dame's timeline to return. It's still like 2 months out, right?
Oh,
I don't know if it's 2 more months,
Like
but he
6
said
weeks?
depending on where they're at.
Oh, okay.
Then
And they ain't going to be anywhere good.
no, so yeah, it's done.
He's
Like,
done for the year.
for sure.
Yeah.
It's and that means the Blazers are done. I don't care
Well,
if you
do you think they're making any more trades?
Oh, are they done? I thought you meant like,
Yeah.
is their season done? I'm like, is that really a question? No, they're not done making trades.
Interesting. See, I have the opposite viewpoint. And Silva, which side do you fall on? Are they done making trades, or are they going to continue working?
I think they're gonna keep working.
Okay, then I'm planting my flag. I'm the lone one here. I think they probably had some sort of get out of the luxury tax mandate from the ownership, and they've done that now. They've done that now.
That's a franchise killer.
And so why continue? Like, again, Dame's out. You're not going to win many games anyways. Just ride the season out and then come back next year with Dame, CJ, Anthony, Nurk, and whatever you get in the draft this year.
I think Nurk's gone.
I do
where
too.
that's where I think it's traded.
That's where I'm at too.
And I think CJ good. I think the Pelicans will offer enough, and this franchise is incompetent enough that they'll take
Josh
maybe
Hart.
not pennies on the dollar,
Josh
but like
Hart.
dimes on the dollar, right? Like
Josh
I don't
Hart
know.
in a some kind of Kira Lewis or something.
Oh, so
I don't know.
bad. Poor Dame.
Yeah.
See, the Seattle Super Blazers.
Yeah.
All right. So next, I have some questions for you guys about the Thunder's trade deadline. A few fun ones, I think. First up, and we'll go in order. So Silva, you're first to answer here. How many picks does OKC acquire by the time the buzzer hits Thursday at 2 p.m. Central Time? How many picks? How many more picks will they get?
That's a fun one. Probably 2. I'm gonna stick with 2.
Okay. Like, do you want to differentiate? Are you saying like 2 firsts, 2 seconds,
I
one
think
of
it's
each?
gonna be like a first and a second.
Okay. Nick, what do you think? How many picks do the Thunder get this week?
I think they get 1 second round pick.
Taylor?
Ooh. I chuckled at Silva because that was exactly my answer to a T. I was thinking maybe like a late first and like a second round pick for a total of 2 picks.
Screw it. I'll go 3.
Okay.
I'll go
Ooh.
3 because I think they trade a player away
Okay.
and get something. And I think they run out cap space. A la Derek Favors, a la Kemba Walker, and get a pick that way as well.
I like it.
Is it Joe Ingles? Is it somebody else? Somebody is going to need to duck some money. Is it a deal with Boston to get Boston? I mean, do the Thunder just take on Dennis Schroeder? I think something like that will net them a pick.
Dennis back with
No,
Shea.
not if 2 contenders are already calling and they have offers on Schroeder. I don't think they're going to dump him into salary.
That's true.
But no, I get your
but
logic. I agree.
Yeah, just that
And
general
still,
idea.
Boston, even without Shooter, is a likely.
Taylor, how many players, not picks, how many players does OKC acquire or bring in this week?
I'm just leaning on the side of boredom for OKC this deadline. I think it's just going to be one. It's just going to be that Joe Ingles or that one big contract, because I think for the rest of the season, speaking of like how the Thunder are going to view post trade deadline to an earlier point in the podcast, I think they're going to waive said big contract, buy him out, whatever it may be. So that way you can convert let's say Wiggins injury isn't long-term serious for the season. You convert him to a full contract, and then you can bring Diakite in on a 2-way. That's just kind of my thinking right now. So I'm going to say 1.
Nick, how many players is OKC acquiring this week?
2. 1, with your logic of, taking on an asset and a salary dump. I proposed, this is my second player coming in, proposed to Taylor last night, the Diallo, Svi Mykhailiuk type trade where it's like, we've got a guy that's you got a guy that's let's swap them, see how they fit. If they don't work, we both, lose them this summer. I think Ty Jerome is a guy that's going to be going out for another kind of player.
Speaking of the Celtics, Nick brought up Bol last night.
Yeah.
What do you guys
Bol for Ty Jerome, and then maybe a second round picks flung around.
Do the
somewhere
Celtics
in there.
really need another white point guard with Peyton Pritchard? It's really fitting a little bit of a narrative there.
I can't stop thinking about Bol and Poku being on the same team.
That's exactly what we talked about last night. And then Chet coming in.
Long boys.
Long
Run me a lineup
boys.
of those 3. So how many players does OKC acquire?
2. I think they're going to take on salary with 1 player, and I think they're going to get some like second draft type jabroni. Like
Jabroni. All right. I like it. Silva coming back. Well, actually, no. Nick has always been in the middle. So, Nick, you get to go first on this last one. How many players does Oklahoma City trade away this week?
1. Same logic as last time.
Okay. Silva?
2.
Ooh.
You want to name the 2, or are you just going to leave it ambiguous?
I'm scared.
You don't
It's
have to
gonna
name
be
them.
Lou Dort.
I almost want to say Lou Dort just to get crazy. Kenrich and Lou Dort. Why not?
Ooh.
See you later.
Yeah.
Taylor.
So they have a roster spot open right now. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
That's what I was thinking. So based off my logic previously, if I'm sticking to my guns, I have to say 0 players going out, just taking back a big contract.
Okay.
Boring.
Interesting.
I'm not rooting for that.
I think
playing it safe.
I kind of like where you're at, Taylor, as far as the idea of having an open roster spot and then converting Wiggins and getting Diakite on a 2-way. I think that makes a lot of sense. I think they do that by just buying out Derek Favors.
Oh, that's a good point. I like that. I like
I
that a lot.
think that's how they get
and
there.
then you can acquire a player. Yeah.
I've got a pop-up question
All
before
right.
we get into actual trades. Kings reportedly really want to get off of Marvin Bagley. What's the most you give up for him?
I wait till 1:55 p.m. and I say I have this second rounder or these 2 second rounders. What do you want?
Yep.
Take it, or you're carrying him into the summer and he's extension eligible. And then what do you want to
Yeah.
do?
Yep.
You
Yeah,
want
I
nothing, or
agree.
do you want a little bit of something?
I'd give 2 seconds that you know are going to be like late seconds.
I'm not giving him my own second.
No, hell no.
Agreed.
Before we move on to some
Okay.
league-wide trades, so not like trades that you specifically want. Like Nick can't say, "Oh, trade away Kenrich Williams and like some shitty first-round pick for John Collins," you know. But what is a semi-realistic trade that kind of fits within the ethos of what this team is trying to do? That you like, that you want to see them make this week?
I've got one.
Okay.
Kenrich Williams for a second-round pick and Jarrett Culver.
That's kind of fun.
I actually do like that. I like that a
Good.
lot.
That's good.
I think that makes a lot of sense for Memphis.
I'd rather have Zaire Williams, but that's very, very unrealistic.
Yes.
What about BJ Boston? Could they like somehow pry him away from the
doubt
Clippers,
it.
even though they
I
think
doubt it.
I
highly
don't
of him?
think so.
Yeah,
I don't think so.
I don't either. But I like that Culver one. That's interesting.
Mine is, this one's been talked about a lot. I know it's been mentioned on other Thunder podcasts. I know. I like to think that I was one of the first Thunder folks to kind of throw this idea out there, though. Send Kenrich Williams to Utah. Eat that Joe Ingles contract. I don't like Joe Ingles, but he wouldn't play for this team. He would just sit on the bench. He would be a mentor to the young guys.
Has a good relationship with Giddey.
Good relationship with Giddey. You save Utah even more money because you've already done that once this year. You give them Kenrich, who I think fits really well with them.
Mhm. They desperately need wing help.
Kenrich might like be in closing lineups for them because they need defense, wing defense so bad. You take back Jared Butler, and you get them. The Thunder currently own their 2024 first round pick. I believe it's either top 10 or lottery protected. You make them unprotect the pick.
If you make that trade, I think Jared Butler is your third oldest player.
That's crazy.
Oh, that's insane.
Crazy.
I actually think so.
My
insane.
original idea was you get them to unprotect that first rounder, and then you get them to give you a lottery protected first as well. So basically taking on Ingles makes them unprotect a pick, and then giving them Kenrich gets you another first that is protected later on down the line. So you eat like $10 million. You give them a wing that can help them in the playoffs. You get the protections removed from one pick, and you get another first that's like heavily protected, like top 15.
I would love that. That's
Just
like
playing-
a grand slam.
Playing devil's advocate, if I'm Utah's ownership and I hear these murmurs of Donovan Mitchell thinks he deserves me a bigger market, and a lot of your core, like Mike Conley's old, like Rudy Gobert's like good, but like what's his long-term future? Like that makes me really concerned to unprotect picks and send out more future first round picks. If I'm Utah's front office, I'm like, I don't know. I don't really trust our future.
Yep. I agree. I totally agree.
I love that a lot, though, especially getting Butler back.
Let's move on to some league-wide trades. Silva and I spent some time this evening throwing together some trades. I will throw them out, and I just want you guys to tell me what you think. Okay, we've got 7 of them. We'll spend a few minutes on each. We don't want to take the pod too awful long, about another 15 minutes or so. So this first one comes via Fanspo, which is Trade NBA before it got renamed. This was a fan-created question or fan-created trade.
Yep.
Little convoluted, so follow me here. The Knicks get Jalen Brunson. The Blazers get Kristaps Porzingis. The Mavs get Mitchell Robinson, CJ McCollum, and a Knicks they get their they actually get their own 2023 first round pick back that they traded to Dallas in the Porzingis deal. So again, Knicks get Brunson, Blazers get the Zinger, or as I like to call him, Tingus Pingus, and the Mavericks get Mitchell Robinson, CJ McCollum, and their first round pick back.
My first initial thought is it does make sense for all teams, but I'm not sure. Even if CJ isn't like, the CJ of 2 years ago, I'm not sure that the Blazers are getting compensated enough for CJ.
Wow. I thought it was fair for everyone besides New York.
Huh.
Just because Brunson's due a bag this summer.
True. You'd have to have confirmation from Brunson and his side that they'll re-sign.
Well, I don't think
we'll sign a new
Yeah,
contract.
I think he'd resign, but if you're New York, do you want to give up Mitchell Robinson a first round pick and pay him? Interesting. That
is
Silva, who do you think it's most unfair for?
I was leaning towards Portland. I think they would need to make some other moves to make that make sense for them. Like, I don't know if I want Kristaps and Nurkic still on that team.
Yeah.
I'd rather see like a Larry Nance Kristaps thing going on there.
Yeah,
it's a good point.
That's not good for New York.
I think it's interesting for Portland though, because if you do trade Nurk, call it for just a future asset. Then you trade Dame at some point for just a haul. And if you're trading Dame, you're getting some kind of young guy. That means you've got a Porzingis, Simons, Nasir Little, whoever you get back for Dame. You're starting to really have a nice little rebuild core there.
Yeah.
It's an interesting one.
That is.
All right. I'm glad that nobody has a consensus. That typically means it's a good trade.
Yeah.
Typically means it's a good trade. Next one. I really enjoy this one. This one's per Bleacher Report. The Memphis Grizzlies get Pascal Siakam and Chris Boucher. Toronto Raptors get Dylan Brooks, Steven Adams, Zaire Williams, Jarrett Culver, a 2022 first-round pick, and a 2024 first-round pick via Golden State. The Memphis Grizzlies own that Golden State pick.
I like that. That's pretty fun. Bleacher Report is notoriously known for uneducated and poor trades for clickbait, and that's a pretty good one.
It's another one that I think it makes sense for both sides. If I had to lean one way, I like what Memphis has got going, and I think they've got the pieces to be good now, the pieces to be good in the future. I like Dylan Brooks. He's averaging, last I looked, like 17 a game, if I'm not mistaken. Like, he's a scorer. I think Siakam makes them better.
A Siakam, Jaren Jackson Jr. pairing in the front court. It's kind of fun.
Yeah, but they're playing so well.
Yeah. I think
I almost
the
wonder
old
if,
adage of if it ain't broke, you don't fix it.
Right.
And is Siakam and Triple J too? I mean, they aren't the same player by any means, but is it too redundant? Like, if you're getting a player of that caliber, would you rather it be a player a little more different than what Siakam would be giving you compared to what Triple J is giving you? I don't know.
That package that Memphis is sending out is wildly attractive. I think you might be able to do better than Siakam.
That's a good point. That is a really impressive. Yeah, because you're talking
big
Brooks,
two
Steven
future
Adams,
firsts,
big contract, Zaire, which is intriguing, Culver, which is intriguing less, but still, and then 2 really solid first round picks.
I think that gets you a Beal.
Yeah.
Oh.
If you throw a little bit more in there this summer,
I think it'd have to be Bane instead of Dylan Brooks to
do
get
it.
Beal.
Do it.
Throw
Bane into
like
that.
Bane.
Throw Bane into that deal.
I think
Bane's a young Bill.
I'm with you, Nick, but I think a lot of people around the league would say no because of Bane.
Oh my God. Can you imagine
I like Bane.
Beal, Triple J? Like,
Yeah, be fun.
boy.
Be fun. Next one. This one's also per Bleacher Report. I think this one's fascinating. I love this one. Atlanta Hawks receive Jonathan Isaac and a 2023 first round pick via the Bulls. The Magic receive John Collins.
I always forget the Magic have both John Isaac and Markelle Fultz, who are like good, intriguing young players, but aren't playing.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So you'd be
What's the
cashing in
latest on
Jonathan
Isaac?
Isaac for John Collins.
Is Isaac coming back? Is he?
I have no clue, to be honest.
I feel like that
Health is
2020.
hanging up there.
Yeah, true. True.
That pick is one of the picks
Yeah.
they got in the
Bulls.
Vucevic
the
deal.
Vucevic, yep. And the Bulls are good. I don't love that for Atlanta. I mean it's intriguing, and I know Collins isn't like a. I mean,
Collins isn't really a
not
defensive
even an
guy.
all-star.
John Isaac, if healthy,
Yeah, I'd almost
becomes
rather
a
just
really
take
big.
continue to gamble on Isaac at that point. But that's interesting. That's another interesting one.
That's tough. That's it. All these are like there's no consensus, like you said, Jacob. That's a good thing.
Mhm.
I think the Hawks want to win now. I think they want. I don't think John Isaac. I don't know, man. That's really tough.
We just haven't seen Isaac
Especially
enough.
when
It's-
this is a forward heavy draft, and there's a good chance that they end up getting the Magic end up getting one of Paolo, Chet, or Jabari.
Mhm.
that's
It's
true.
just- I don't know.
It's a fascinating one. Also,
Yeah.
you have to question the fit. I mean, I know Jonathan Isaac is a wing, but if they were to get John Collins is primarily a 4. You can even slide him up to 5 a little bit. And
Yep.
you already have Mo Bamba and you already have Wendell Carter Jr. Like, I understand just accumulating talent, whatever that is, and sorting it all out later. But you really have a logjam at
Yeah.
that point.
Especially with my prior point of you're going to get
Mhm.
a power forward center in the draft.
Mm-hmm.
True.
It's a fascinating one, though.
It is. That's a good one.
This one is per Silva,
I like it. I was reading it. I like this.
Jaylen Brown to the Sacramento Kings for Buddy Hield, Tyrese Halliburton, and 2 first-round picks. Kings' first-round picks are
Yeah. And
prime
Halliburton in there.
prime real estate.
Oh, and Halliburton with it.
Halliburton
so
had
well next to Tatum.
17 assists last night.
Career high.
He's really good. He's really good.
He's
I've been pushing Jalen Brown trade ideas for a while.
yeah,
I
and
Yeah.
love Jalen Brown.
Yeah. Gosh, I would love
Ty-
to.
if I had to make like a list of just random dudes in the league that I love, like Tyrese Halliburton is near the top of that list. So is Jaylen Brown.
Yep. I love that return for Boston. Boston obviously doesn't want to trade Brown or whatever, but like if Brown went to management and said I want out, that is a solid offer that they would have to entertain.
I think the fit's just better around Tatum. Like you get
Yep.
Halliburton to get in the ball, and you get another shooter that you don't really have with Hield.
You could then turn around and trade the 2 Kings firsts for something really good.
Yeah.
for Robert Covington.
God, I hate you.
Well done. Ben Simmons.
I'd like to see that become a 3-teamer. I think that's got some legs to it. If you could find a third, like if you find Oklahoma City, and you say, "Hey, one of these firsts for Dort," and then you keep one of the other firsts for a later pick, like I would trade Lou Dort for Sacramento's first rounder straight up.
Mhm.
So then you're looking at Hield, Halliburton, Dort, and a future Kings first. That's intriguing.
That's a banger.
Mhm.
That's intriguing.
And then Boston's lineup looks something like Tyrese Halliburton, Lou Dort, Marcus Smart, Jason Tatum, Time Lord.
Holy defense.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Well, and then you can even get like even more crazy. And there's talks about them trading Marcus Smart. You can trade Smart at that point for something else that fits even better. Like there are a lot of options.
I think we said Lou Dort is now the better Marcus Smart.
Yeah.
I love that. Next one, per me. Miles Turner to Charlotte for PJ Washington, Kelly Oubre, and a 2022 first rounder to Indy.
I'm willing to say that if Turner does it does end up in Charlotte, I think that's very, very close to what the final package looks like. I think you're very close to being spot on.
Is that enough for Miles Turner, Nick? PJ Washington, Kelly Oubre, and a first round pick, knowing that first round pick is not going to be in the lottery? And knowing that you have to pay PJ this summer?
I think the PJ and the first round pick are perfect. Like that is if Indy's looking to get assets, that's what you want. I struggle with Kelly Oubre.
That was for salary matching purposes.
Okay. I'm wondering
my only thing in putting that trade together, and I'm interested, I'm going to tell you this, and I want your thoughts, was I considered, do I add Kai Jones or James Bouknight,
Mm-hmm.
or do I add one of those 2 guys and remove the pick?
I think adding without removing a pick is too much. I don't know.
That's tough.
I think that's another one where if you could find a third team to reroute Oubre to and get like another like early second rounder or high first rounder, then you're looking at 2 first rounders and PJ. I think that's what it is.
I
Interesting.
like that a lot. That's a good point.
I mean, yeah, Kelly Oubre. I mean, James Bouknight also doesn't. I mean, I guess he's a younger guard, but James Bouknight, Kelly Oubre, and Jeremy Lamb are all just the same guy to me.
Yeah. No question. And I think it'd be interesting because I don't think Malcolm Brogdon's on this team long term. Like they can't trade him right now. Like rules don't allow it.
Yep.
So I don't think it's redundant to bring in a guard like a Bouknight if that was part of it. Yeah, it's got legs just like Silva's. I think it's a third team coming in away from me saying it's a no-brainer.
All right. Next one. This number 6 of 7. Another John Collins trade. This time he ends up out in Atlanta. Sorry, he is in Atlanta. He ends up out in Sacramento. Atlanta gets Harrison Barnes and Davion Mitchell.
Interesting.
A little bit of higher upside front court.
I like the
for
fits.
the Kings.
I like Mitchell in Atlanta. I like
Mitchell and
Collins
Trae
in
Young.
Sacramento.
It's a
You
nice
have
contrast.
kind of Jekyll and Hyde there.
I just don't know if Atlanta would do that, but I like the fit for both teams. It just seems
Harrison
like one
Barnes
that
and
neither team's
DeAndre
super-
Hunter, your forwards.
Yeah,
Call me crazy.
it just doesn't get me excited.
I'm not as high on Barnes as some might be.
I'm with you. I'm
Yeah.
not high on Barnes either, but I think a lot of teams see him as a good wing option, as like a 4th starter or something like that.
Especially if
Like,
they
can
strike
Barnes
out
be a
on
4th starter
Jeremy
on a title
Grant.
team? Or
Yeah.
like on a finals team?
Yep.
Golden State.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When he got
Okay.
a max,
He's
when he got a,
older
ma-
now.
when he got a max contract.
Okay. Can he be a 4th starter on a finals team that isn't like maybe the best team in the past
Generational.
50
Oh,
years?
I mean, think about if Milwaukee was able
I
to
could
get
be the
him.
4th starter with Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green all in their prime.
Okay, put Harrison Barnes as the 4th best player on the Nets, the Heat, the Bucks, the Suns, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But that in mind, I don't think the Hawks are a contender after this trade or before the trade.
Yeah.
So
I would agree there.
Maybe a
I just don't
hot
think it
take. I
happens.
think like people are so worried about the Hawks because they made the conference finals last year and they haven't been good this year, although they've turned the corner.
they have.
To me, they shouldn't be good for about another year or two. Get the wheels under Onyeka Okongwu.
Yeah.
Get DeAndre Hunter healthy.
Yep.
You know, they've got a lot of really fun young guys.
They
Yep.
do.
I can't remember. One of you guys was really high on Onyeka Okongwu with me. I think he's really good. I think he's going to be a really fun
I
center.
really like it, Kongwu.
He's got some Bam Adebayo in him, I think.
Ooh, I kind of like that.
Last one, per franchisesports.co. Julius Randle to the Washington Wizards. KCP, Rui Hachimura, Aaron Holiday, and a 1st-round pick back to the Knicks.
Interesting.
It's just gross for both sides.
I don't know if
It kind of feels like the
Knicks-
Knicks have to do something, right?
Julius will
Yeah.
not be any happier in Washington.
Gosh, I really am rooting for. This is even more unlikely, but I'm rooting for that Randall Fox swap. Would just be the most Knicks Kings trade ever.
But at
But-
least in that trade, like I think after last night, RJ Barrett is the face of the Knicks.
Yeah,
Like that was a coming out game. It's not Julius Randle's team, it's RJ Barrett's team. I don't think trading Randle, KCP's solid. Rui has upside. Holiday's a decent guy, 1st-round pick. Then it's RJ and there's a drop off where I think Fox, that trade you talked about, Taylor, at least like a Fox Barrett, that's a fun 1-2 punch.
that's a lot of
You're
fun.
adding blue chips.
If you trade Randall, you have to have a guy that you see as a 1-2 punch next to Barrett.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah, Julius Randle is not a $1 player, but that trade is a 4 quarters for $1.
Yeah. No doubt.
right? You're breaking
Absolutely.
the talent up into smaller pieces, and that's just not good.
It's not a bad trade on paper, but it's you're trading a guy that is a core.
If you have too many mouths to feed on your team,
Yeah.
this is a
Then
good
that
trade to
makes
make.
sense. Yep.
You,
Right.
you trade him for role players and assets.
Yeah.
I just don't think the Knicks are.
Nobody thinks the Knicks has too many mouths to feed.
No.
And they aren't close enough to make that kind of trade for those role players. Yeah, no, I agree. Also, just really, really quick, I know we've gone long, but Topher reached out and was mentioning a report from Quentin Mayo, I believe, Blue Wire, fellow Blue Wire family member. He's very plugged in when it comes to the Wizards, and stated or reported today that the Wizards apparently are zeroed in on Sabonis, and they've submitted an offer but haven't heard back from the Pacers yet. That would entail, as Topher intelligently mentioned,
you haven't heard back.
Yeah,
voicemail is full.
hung up the phone.
What? I asked this girl.
Shepard is not available to come to the phone. At the moment.
Called this
Please
girl
let
and
them
asked me my girlfriend on voicemail, and I haven't heard back. It's probably not a good sign, bud.
know. Yep.
No, but I like that, Taylor. I like that.
If that were to happen, the Thunder would have to unprotect that pick that they received. Gosh, what was it? Was it from Houston? How did we get that pick? I think it's kind of what Topher was getting at.
That's a great. I'm looking that up right now. While I'm looking that up, I don't know we've gone long, but what does
It's trade deadline week.
What does
Let's go
a
2 hours.
Sabonis to Washington trade look like on the other side?
Oh yeah, that's fun. Okay, so Harrell, right?
Oh, Harold's gone, dude. That dude, he literally said he hates it here.
Yeah, he's like, he really
his post game interview was the equivalent of Eric Bledsoe saying, "I don't want to be here."
Well, hey, after that Clippers game, I can't imagine any Wizard wants to be there anymore.
He said, blah blah blah. This effing sucks. Something
Yes.
about this locker room effing sucks.
And then had like a which one of them had like a TikTok message or something. Oh, it was ridiculous.
It was bad, man.
Yeah.
Did you see?
So that pick, that Washington
that was
pick,
Turner.
comes to
Turner.
Oklahoma City
Dog.
via Houston. I think Oklahoma City
The
got
Şengün
it
trade.
in the Şengün trade.
Yeah.
That's what it was. It was the Şengün trade.
Even though it wasn't a Şengün trade, it was a trade for 16, and Houston took Şengün.
Yep.
Here is my thing with that pick, and if somebody in the chat or somebody listening to this podcast later, if I'm wrong on this, please correct me. That pick is lottery protected in 2023. If it doesn't convey, it becomes 1 through 12 protected in 2024. If that doesn't convey, it becomes 1 to 10 protected in 2025. If that doesn't convey, it becomes 1 to 8 protected in 2026. And if it
That's
doesn't
amazing.
convey by then, it becomes a second round pick.
That's like putting them in jail for the next every other year for the next 10 years.
Per the Stepien rule, you cannot trade picks in back-to-back years.
Right.
We don't know
First
where
round
that
pick,
pick's
yeah.
going to land.
So they can't.
So they can't trade a first they can't trade this year's because that would be Stepien rule 2022 and 2023. They couldn't trade a pick until 2028.
You know what's hilarious? That trade is the Russell Westbrook to the Wizards #1 pick.
Full circle.
Oh, wow.
That's
The
amazing.
John Wall plus a first rounder for Russell Westbrook. That's that pick.
That
And then
is
that
amazing.
pick plus another pick became 16 for Şengün.
Yep.
Wow. It came full circle. That's incredible.
That's awesome.
Yeah, they would have to unprotect that pick to trade any first round pick between now and 2027.
Here's a
I
question.
like that.
So when Washington calls and says,
And
"Hey, Sam Presti, we have a trade. We're going to get DeMontis Sabonis. The only hang up is we can't trade our first. We've already decided which first we want to trade. We just need to unprotect that pick that we owe you. Is it okay if we give you an unprotected first?" If I'm Sam Presti, I say, "Bitch, what you giving me?
Yeah.
Yep.
I ain't doing you any favors.
Exactly.
You want to give me a better pick? Cool. Give me a second round or two."
Yeah.
Exactly. Give me more draft capital. Also, speaking of full circle, who was it that traded DeMontis Sabonis to the Pacers?
There you go.
It's wild.
That is
That is
It
wild.
all works.
Sam Presti
Paul
controls
George
the NBA.
trade still paying dividends.
Do we think that over the next 8 years, any of these picks actually get unprotected for a trade like this?
Yes.
You
I
think, so?
Just the sheer math says one of them has to.
I hope so. That'll be fun when
Yeah,
it
because
happens.
right now having all those first rounders are fun. but they're all protected so high that they're going to be like pick 16 and pick 18.
Yeah.
And nothing against Trey Man. I love Trey Man, but they're all going to be Trey Man style picks. You want a blue chipper. Can you get one person to slip up and unprotect one of those things? Find one desperate franchise. Washington may be that desperate franchise. Utah, Nick, you mentioned I'm not sure I'm protecting future picks if I'm Utah because I don't know what the next 3 years looks like. Does Donovan Mitchell want out? Maybe they have the flip side opinion and they say, we don't know what 3 years looks like. We've got a window now. We got to take it.
Yeah. Perhaps.
Who knows?
Perhaps.
This is a long podcast. Let's leave.
That was fun.
Sylvia, you got my outro music? You probably need to unmute yourself.
Yep.
There you go. Hey, the chat was popping tonight. Thank you guys for hopping on. Again, get us up to at least 400 YouTube subs. We're at like 386 right now. And then on the live stream on Thursday for the trade deadline, we'll give away a Poku pack. So subscribe to the YouTube channel. Tune in Thursday, 1 p.m. Central Time. We'll hang out. We'll just read Woj tweets and yell in the microphone a lot with you guys and interact in the chat. So it'll be a great time. Besides that, though, we have so many dadgum podcasts coming your way this week. You guys aren't going to know what to do with yourself. We got a post-game tomorrow night, Monday, against the Golden State Warriors. We got a post-game Wednesday. We've got a trade pod and a trade live stream on Thursday. We've got a post-game Friday and Saturday. Then we have another weekly live stream next Sunday.
Tuesday's the only day we're not podcasting.
Busy. Make sure you're subbed to the pod. Wherever you get your podcast from, drop that 5-star rating. Besides that, you guys have a great beginning of your week. Enjoy NBA Trade Week. Best week of the year. It's like Christmas, but for NBA junkies. We'll talk to you soon. Until then, and as always, thunder up.